We hear a lot of stuff on the internet about the US Census. Those nosy folks come poking around your property asking you all kinds of personal questions, and apparently in the American Constitution you're only obliged to say how many people are living in your home and not give a whole bunch of personal private information, and certainly not about your neighbors, because they do sometimes even ask you about other people. But what about in Canada? Well, I guess we're worse off than you are, or we were, because we actually had a mandatory long-form census. So there are two kinds of census. There's a regular census, and then there's the long form, which up until very recently was mandatory. And in the long form, they would ask you all kinds of personal questions. Okay, here's an article from the Globe and Mail. Globe and Mail blogs, Ottawa Notebook. What the census feud is all about. So in this one, they'll tell you a little bit about what is in the long form census. I don't think I've ever answered one of these, but okay, here's some of the things. Personal information, name, sex, date of birth, and marital status, which you would think the government would know anyway. Questions about citizenship, language, race, and ethnic origin. Name your employer, state what kind of work you do, whether you've been absent from your job in the previous week. Statistics Agency asked for permission to access the respondent's most recent income tax filing from Revenue Canada. If that was refused, they were asked to state how much money they made from wages, government benefits, pensions, dividends, interest, support payments, etc. And then they want to know if you have trouble seeing, hearing, bending, or climbing the stairs, and if you were physically or mentally disabled. What happened recently, like I said, they got rid of the mandatory long form census. It used to be that they would send this one to 1 in 5 people, and they were obliged to answer, and if they didn't answer, they could get a fine or some jail time. I think it was like $2,000 or 6 months in jail, something like that. They would send this out, and they got rid of it. It was a clever thing that they did. It's even more clever than you would think, you know, on first glance. What they noticed was the backlash that the US government was having from these annoying, prying census people going around getting all your personal information and putting you on GPS and all that. And what they see is the US responding to a big brother state, to a government that's, you know, becoming, should I say tyrannical? I don't know, a government that's giving itself too much power and demanding too much information which should be private, among other things. So what they saw happening in the States was a kind of grassroots revolt against this, including the Tea Party movement. So what our Canadian government decided to do was to head it off in Canada, nip it in the bud. Let's not give the Canadian people a reason to mobilize. And, well, one of the reasons would be the census, but there are a lot of others. But let's not give them a reason to mobilize. So what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of the mandatory long-form census, and we're going to replace it with a voluntary long-form census. So they still have it. What they're going to do, though, is instead of sending it to 1 in 5 people, they're going to send it to 1 in 3. And they're also, of course, going to launch a massive propaganda campaign to make people want to answer the census. So in the end, they'll probably get just as much information as they ever did. Well, Clement accused of misrepresenting census impact. It says here, StatsCan insiders say industry ministers' comments playing down effects of voluntary survey enraged staff. So what does the government need all this information from you for? Well, here, this is how they put it here. This is MELCAP Institute for Research on Public Policy. This is supposed to make us want the census? It says, this is not about pointy-headed researchers. It is about business who needs the information for product development and marketing. I believe that. It is about charities and NGOs targeting. It is about public health authorities making us healthier. That I don't believe so much, because if they really wanted to make us healthier, there's a lot of things they could do, like, for example, not allow us to be, you know, fed poisonous foods and dangerous products, and encourage us to get our breasts irradiated every year, and, you know, common sense things like that. But taking statistics to find out if you have hearing problems or if you have trouble bending over and you know, I don't really think that this is about making us healthier. I do believe the part about businesses needing the information for product development and marketing. Our governments are basically sold out to corporations. So of course they would cooperate with corporations to gather as much information on us consumers as they can, so that then they can target us with more propaganda to make us want to buy stuff that we don't need and can't afford. I think that really does have a lot to do with it. So, you know, the census, I won't be filling out the long form. If we had a nice government that really cared about us, and that wasn't sold out to the globalist elite and the corporations, maybe I would, you know, I'm a good sport, maybe I would fill it out, but under the circumstances, no thank you.